Nearly 2 decades in the sports broadcast game, and what a ride it's been. Interviews with the 42nd President Bill Clinton, to Lakers legends Kobe Bryant, and the NBA's all-time leading scorer Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, to name a few. I've been blessed to cover and tell some amazing stories, but there were so many more I didn't get to tell.
Now, your other main job, if someone could have more than one main job, is the voice of the Milwaukee Brewers. And baseball has experienced several stoppages and postponements because of the coronavirus. And how do you see the remainder of the baseball season being played out under the current guidelines that they have?
I think the Marlins situation early, when they had 19 players test positive over about a 4-day stretch, it went from 2 to 8 to 11 to 19. That got everybody's attention, but it was still the Marlins, and it was like, well, it's the Marlins. You know, they're not taking the season seriously, whatever. That's not true, but that was the perception. Right. When the Cardinals had the breakout, which happened in Milwaukee, that got everybody's attention in a significant way, and real changes were made. So they basically bubbled up themselves in their traveling parties. So it's literally your apartment or condo or house in your home city to the ballpark. Then when you're on the road, it's room service or outdoor eating at the hotel to the ballpark. And they brought in security, watchdogs, whatever you want to call them. 2 Cleveland Indians famously got caught, and one of them's been traded. The other one's basically in limbo right now. They took it seriously. They know it's basically a 2-month sprint to the finish line, and there's a lot of money on the line. That's where all of this ends up, as you know, Telly. There's a ton of cash on the line. And Major League Baseball, if they have to pay back the networks for all the money that they've paid to broadcast these games, not just national networks, but all the RSNs, they're not going to be able to withstand it. And I think these players got the message. My understanding is they're going to keep going this way, taking it very seriously, faster tests, more rapid tests, so you can know in quarantine when a player does test positive or have symptoms. And then as you get toward the playoffs, those who are in the playoff scenario, and remember they're adding teams this year, so there's 16 teams that'll make the playoffs, 8 from each league. They're going to go into a hotel, I think the week or 10 days before, and they're going to bubble up. And then the playoffs, I don't know this for 100% fact because it still has to be approved, but the plan is to bubble up the playoffs. So one bubble would be in Arlington, Texas, and Houston. So that'd be the National League, where you'd have 2 stadiums with domes, roofs. And then the American League is going to bubble up in Los Angeles, and you'd utilize San Diego and Dodger Stadium, 2 ballparks. You need 2 ballparks and another park to train in, to work out, take BP. And I think that's the way it's going to go. So I do the American League this year on TBS, and I think we're going to be, my guess is, barring a huge breakout, we're going to be in Los Angeles for the American League postseason, the whole entirety of it, and then it'll run very similar to the way it's running here in the NBA bubble in Orlando.
Wow. Now, having called MLB and NBA games during these times of civil unrest, what do you think about the job both leagues have done allowing their athletes to use the platforms to speak out on social and racial injustices?
Well, I mean, I think the phrase "allow their players" is maybe gone. I think the players are doing it anyway, and the teams are, I don't want to say forced, because I think a lot of organizations stand behind their players in a significant way, more so in basketball and the NBA than in Major League Baseball. But never before have the players had more leverage. Never before have they been more vocal. The days of shut up and dribble are over. There's no reason why a citizen can't perform in his job and still be active politically. And that goes for athletes, even though you hear it a lot, and I've heard it a lot. My phone's blowing up every day. Like, why can't these guys just play the game and I don't want to, when I watch sports, I just want to watch sports. I don't want to hear about political activism. I don't want to hear Black Lives Matter. I don't want to hear about social injustice. And too bad. I mean, these players are human beings. And my attitude toward this is the opposite. I think they are the symbol of how we all can function in our jobs, do our jobs, us as broadcasters, and yet still be active and fully engaged in the political system, in social change, social justice initiatives. Why can't we? Why aren't we expecting that of ourselves as citizens? Like, I'm not going to tell, if I run a restaurant, I'm not telling my employees, my servers, chefs, cooks, I'm not saying, hey, I don't want to hear any political talk while you're here. These are human beings. They're going through all of this. If you want to run a business the right way, then you have group meetings with your employees. And I'm not just talking about the NBA. I think they're setting an example. Major League Baseball is setting an example. But they're proving that they can function this way. And that's the way we should all be living our lives. We should all be engaged in everything that's going on in this country because we're citizens of this country. Why would we want to do a job and not have any communication or any impact at all in our neighborhoods, our communities, where we live, the decisions that are being made? Why? For so long, especially in sports, we've wanted to hush our athletes. Colin Kaepernick took a very quiet knee that became a very loud story, and people were outraged. Well, what were the means and why was he doing that? That should have been the question, right? And so now I think Kaepernick's been lifted up because of that. And I think everybody, you can have your own opinions about it. It's okay to have your own opinions and to understand, but it doesn't mean that these players shouldn't be speaking up. And the younger generation, the 20 to 30-year-olds are going to change this world. My daughter's 20, she'll be 21. And she's a total activist. She's all in. And she is way more savvy on the political landscape of this country than I ever was. She's teaching me stuff even now. And I'm her dad. And I think that carries over to these players. And they're not really taking it anymore. They can function well, as we saw in that great Jamal Murray game where he scored 50 points for the Nuggets and then gave one of the greatest post-game speeches I've ever heard. Had Breonna Taylor painted on one shoe, had George Floyd painted on the other shoe, and basically saying these shoes are what lifts me up. I can do both. And he's Canadian. It's not just a problem in the United States. So it's off the charts, man. I couldn't be like more in awe of what's happening and the way they're playing and performing and the way they're engaging in their communities and their lives and their political activism. We should all be there.
Well, B, I only have a couple more for you. I know you're a very busy person, but I'll ask you the same question I asked Mike Cameron. What do you think Major League Baseball can do to incorporate more blacks into baseball, and not just on the field, talking front office positions, even down to the broadcast booth, which is an alarming stat that very few people know, but there's only one African-American play-by-play person in the country, which is Dave Sims in Seattle. And I mean, what do you think can be done in order to change the landscape of that as well?
Well, I mean, I was on a podcast with Dave Sims and we had that conversation. And I think, the numbers don't lie and we need to admit it. We need to own it and we need to fix it. And how you fix that, my opinion is there's a lot of ways to do this. But number one, I want Telly Hughes to feel comfortable with baseball and Major League Baseball and being, I want a guy like you to have a path to be a play-by-play man, to go through, I spent 9 years in the minor leagues. Like, why aren't we asking our minor league teams to be looking at candidates? I get a lot of tapes from a broadcasting perspective, a lot of demos, and 10% of them are black, maybe. And when I do see a young black future broadcaster, I'm fully engaged. Like, I want to help this person out, male or female, by the way. Baseball has a lot of ways that they can fix things. Number one, they need to let their players have a voice and embrace that. And I think they're doing that. They're doing a really good job at that. Baseball is a very hard game that it's hard to get equipment. It's hard to it's not a great television sport right now, linear, meaning from start to finish. I think it still pops and into high ratings regionally. this whole notion of like the RBI program and let's go into the inner city, that to me rings hollow. I don't think like going to the inner city and just showing up with baseball equipment matters. I think it's the human beings, and more than anything else, Telly, and you've been around these players, like, you know how deep they are and how thoughtful they are and how impressive they are in their lives. Even to make it to the major leagues is an incredible story. And you look at the way Latin players who have fought through poverty and, you know, they've fought through all kind of hardships, but still they play baseball in Latin American countries. They love baseball. And so I do think it really has to do with the players and be able to support the players and allow the players to be bigger personalities. And the game's not so conducive that way. You know, you can say Mike Trout and the Angels, but you may go see Mike Trout. He may go 0 for 4. That happens a lot in baseball. LeBron James tips the scales for the Lakers every night. Mike Trout may not for the Angels. Over the full course of a season, he will. But, you know, I think it's not the burden of all the black players to get more black kids interested in the game. That's one problem I see right away. We're asking Mike Cameron and Curtis Granderson to, you guys got to go get all the black kids to like baseball again. That's not it. I mean, it's like, it's all the players. It's players who want to take a stand and want to stand up for social injustice and racial injustice. You know, if you're a 12-year-old black kid and you're seeing Ryan Braun and Christian Yelich said, man, I'm with you. Like, I understand now, and I want to make things better. You're going to appreciate Ryan Braun and Christian Yelich more. And so we need to allow our players more opportunities to speak. We need to create a bubble scenario where every interview they can talk about it. They have the freedom, podcast channels. We're seeing a number of players speak out already, but it basically boils down to the connection with the individuals. And then just feeling welcome at the ballpark. And we, as white America, have to ask ourselves, because I look around at all the ballparks I go to back when there were fans, you know, it's mostly white. And why is that?
I mean,
like,
and I'm sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
I used to feel it as well. Every press box that I used to go into, I usually was the only black person that was in a suit that was in these press boxes. I mean, other than, you know, the cafeteria workers or, you know, people that had other jobs were the same color as me. But the people that were performing the same jobs that I was performing did not look like me. So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. And so we have to ask ourselves honest questions. And you say, what's the fix? I think it's just got to be like across the board from an individual basis. Every season ticket holder, we should be having some sort of seminar. You and I should be hosting the Brewer season ticket base on some kind of call to have this conversation, because every person sitting in those seats, if there's a black family that shows up at a game, what's your reaction? And I know most people aren't like, oh, they don't belong here. That's not it. It's just, are you welcoming? Are you inviting? Are you helping teach the game? Are you helping? I don't know, man. It just doesn't feel inviting to me. And that's on all of us, you know, from the white America side of the world, and baseball fans and sports fans, because it's not that way in the NBA. I mean, you feel it's a mixed bag of fans, colors, races, cultures. You know, basketball's global. So baseball's got a lot of work to do in this area. But where it starts, I know, is admitting there's an issue, owning it, and then having groups to discuss this, and not having guys like me in the group, having guys like you, like, what's your perspective, Telly Hughes? That's the question that needs to be answered. What's your perspective? Where are the black ownership? You know, I talk to Grant Hill all the time, and he's an owner in the NBA, and I would love for Grant Hill to be an owner in Major League Baseball. I mean, I think we need more diversity in the ownership groups, and stuff matters, man. When you're in those boardrooms and you're making those decisions, if you don't have that other voice, nobody even recognizes that it's 90% white in our crowds every night. And not to incriminate any major league team, but it's time to start recognizing that, because this game is for everybody. You know, one of the greatest sports heroes and American icons is Jackie Robinson, a black man who did an amazing thing, and he's celebrated. But baseball is the sport that we can focus all this around. They should be at the forefront of all of these, not the NBA, even though the NBA is. Baseball should be right where the NBA is right now. And I think they will get there eventually, but it may take a few more generations.
Well, I appreciate the time, BA. Last one for you, BA, which stands for busiest announcer these days, because you do everything from MLB to NBA to college basketball to golf. And there's so many things that I would love to talk to you about in terms of how you got to where you are. But I'll end it with this. Did you ever envision your career unfolding and blossoming the way that it has?
No way, man. I feel so lucky. I'm not being the humble talk guy either. I feel so blessed and lucky to be here and doing what I'm doing. My only goal, I spent 9 years calling minor league baseball. So, 9 years, man. I called over 1,000 minor league baseball games on the buses. I threw batting practice, I kind of did whatever I could. So I definitely put in the time, but I couldn't get to the next level. I wasn't good enough at first. And when I got good enough, I couldn't get a sniff because the reason, you're looking at a resume going, why has this guy been in San Antonio for 8 years? And, I give so much credit to the Brewers for giving me a chance. They didn't have to. I had no major league experience when they gave me the chance. But they liked my call. They liked that I had done a number of other things and worked for the Spurs. So my only goal was to be a major league radio play-by-play announcer. That was kind of where I was headed. I just wanted to do that alone, to get a TV job, to then get a network job. Because once I got the Brewers job, things started happening really fast. You were there for a lot of that. 2008, I was doing network television. Now I've been with Turner Broadcasting, Turner Sports, for 12 years, and plan on being with them for a long, long time. And I'm really lucky, man. I don't take it for granted. I think diving into the details and really focusing in on everybody around me, how can we make everybody's job better, from my partners to producers, directors, and you've seen how we work at Fox Wisconsin. We have a great crew. We love each other. We always build each other up. We have great talent on that crew. So that to me is like the most satisfying thing, because I started as a cameraman. I was a handheld cameraman. That was how I got my start in television. And then I eventually went to radio broadcasting with the minor league team, and then sideline reporting, and then play-by-play. So I feel very lucky. And the best way I could wrap it up is to say, at some point, probably the third or fourth year, I just quit trying to be somebody I'm not. And I just started letting it fly. My voice, what I see, my words, my word choices, phrases, things that I recognize, and I just let it fly. And I made a decision that I'm going to let it fly, and whatever it sounds like and however it's received is going to be the way it's received, because I can't function in this job for a lifetime, if I'm a fake. If I'm trying to be a Ronnie radio voice and I just can't do that, it's not real. So I just became real. And, from a faith perspective, I found Christ, and I in baseball chapel, and I had that whole mantra of audience of one, show up every day, try to be as great as you can in the space you're in, and whatever happens, it'll happen. Stop trying to manipulate and force things. And that really it changed my life in that perspective. And then it changed my career, because then now you're being you, and people are liking it, and you're getting hired just being you. So then that's liberating, just to kind of be yourself and call games the way you think they should be called, regardless of all the blowback you may get on Twitter, social media. Just do it the way you do it. And if your bosses don't like it, you'll have to tweak it and find another place to work. But so far, I've never been fired. And so I'm very thankful for that.
Well, once again, I truly appreciate your time, BA. Keep up the great work, and we'll continue to enjoy your calls as well as the NBA playoff action.
All right, Telly. Great to be with you, man. You're looking good. Good to see you again.
Oh, it's good to see you. That's Brian Anderson on Untold Truths with Telly.